But thank you all for joining. Again, I'm Candace. I lead marketing for us. I'd love to introduce Ashley one more time. We've had several more people join. So Ashley is our Coach Success Manager. Just a quick overview of how you'll interact with Ashley once you start trial. Jump right in, Ashley.
Yeah, so once you guys start trial, you'll be invited to join our onboarding webinar, which we offer 3 times daily. Gives you a brief overview of the platform and all the functionality and the features that we offer. From there, if you feel like you need a little bit more support, we can always jump on a one-on-one demo call. From here, I can kind of help you see how CoachRx fits your specific business needs. And then also, if you're interested in complimentary transition assistance, shoot us a message, reply to any email. One of us will get it, and they'll make sure it gets to me, and we can always set up a call to go over the next steps for that.
Yeah, so making it as easy as possible for you guys to get in, get using CoachRx, get clients set up, and get to programming right away. That's very important because when you hear what we're going to share with you today, one of the most important ways for you to secure early access to what we're going to share with you is for you to be an active CoachRx subscriber. So if you haven't already, right after this webinar, make sure you start trial. Connect with Ashley, get comfortable and familiar with the platform, and get ready because we have something very exciting for you today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Carl Hardwick, again, CEO of CoachRx and OPEX, to kick us off.
Awesome. Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Ashley. So essentially, if you guys missed before, I think that was before Ashley hit record. I'm essentially the dude that does the talking, but none of the work. I think that's essentially what Candace said. Which is true. It's true. I just sit here and have conversations with people. All right, let's get rolling. All right, so welcome and thanks everyone that joined us today. Especially I see in the chat someone it's 3 a.m. for someone, so appreciate that dedication. So today we're going to dive into this is actually our 3rd webinar that's relating to AI. Webinar number 1, I think that was like early 2023 was our first webinar around this. And we focused on AI in general because it was like fairly new. Like we all knew what artificial intelligence was generally, but a few months before that, this whole like ChatGPT thing launched in November of 2022. So we came off the back end of that in January of 2023 and had our first webinar and had a class ready to go for you guys and all of that. In that webinar, we focused on AI in general, and the goal was to just have a conversation and inform coaches what we believed this AI thing to be. And I just remember very specifically on that webinar saying, what it is today, it won't be tomorrow, right? And it's like that's just been the story over the past few years. Even as we started developing RxBot, we've gotten hit with a lot of positive upgrades where it's like, oh, now we can do this, now we can do that. So I'll hit this when we dig into RxBot, but this thing is going to just evolve very, very quickly because the technology is doing just that. So in webinar number 1, we talked about general ideas on how it can assist the coach and thoughts on how we can leverage it. And we've used that word leverage over and over and over again, and we'll continue to use that word today. Then a few months later, we had our 2nd webinar. On this webinar, we discussed ideas around program design specifically and how we can leverage chat platforms like ChatGPT in program design. We launched like a prompt database early last year as well. We were just kind of giving coaches ideas of like, hey, maybe ask this, maybe ask that, put client data here, client data there. And essentially that's how we built RxBot on the back end. But if you guys haven't seen that, definitely check out the prompt database. But soon you guys will no longer have to use that because it'll be native in CoachRx. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to discuss CoachRx's native AI tool, and we're calling that RxBot. So we're going to focus on RxBot for program design specifically today. Okay, we'll talk about what's to come and all of that, but we're talking about how we're integrating it with program design today. All right, let's dive into itinerary for today. So and this will be kind of like preaching to the choir a little bit, but I think it's good to hear the same thing over and over sometimes, especially when it comes to something as because I know there's a lot of coaches that are very hesitant to this idea of AI, and it can come off as like, oh, well, coaches are just being lazy, or this thing is going to take over my value as a coach. We think that is definitely not the case. So we want to be really clear on our stance on AI. So we're going to talk about how the coach and the AI and an AI platform like RxBot can interact, and this thing can act as a true assistant. Then we'll finally actually unveil our RxBot. So if you guys are on your phones or kind of just listening to this and not looking, by the time we get there, please make sure that you can actually see what we're showing. So we're just going to share a video and walk you through. I think it's about an 8 to 10 minute video talking about our RxBot and actually showing this thing in action. Then after that, we just want to go a little bit deeper and talk about best practices as it relates to RxBot. So you guys will already have context what it is and what it's capable of, and then we'll talk about like, okay, how can you get ready to use this thing inside of CoachRx, and then we'll discuss next steps. All right, so our goal with RxBot. Okay, so our goal and the intention behind this whole thing is to create an AI tool as an assistant to the coach. Okay, so those words are really, really important. As an assistant to the coach, so that the coach can lean into the characteristics that we believe make a good coach. Okay, so those things are like competence, connection, challenging and supporting your clients, and ultimately impacting clients through teaching them what you know as a coach. Okay. So what we want that to be, or what we believe that should be, is that every coach should provide their clients education around exercise, around lifestyle, and around nutrition. Why? So that they can think for themselves. We always talk about that in CCP. We're like, what is the goal of education? The goal of education should be so that you can make decisions for yourself, informed decisions for yourself. So we should be doing that with our clients, okay? So that they can make those informed decisions about their own wellness, and so that they can begin to teach others around them what they've learned and what they are implementing themselves. So when we talk about like, okay, the coach, the how we can connect coach and artificial intelligence, it's to lean into those things. Okay, it's really to lean into the things that make a good coach, the characteristics that make a good coach. Because I'm just in the camp that great program design and spending an hour per week per client in program design is ultimately a waste of time. I think you can allocate that time somewhere else, like building relationships, which we'll dig into. So going back to that word, leverage, okay? So we would like coaches to look at RxBot as a tool, okay? As a tool, as an assistant, leverage this tool, leverage this assistant, okay? So RxBot for program design is a tool for a coach to be able to get a design on the screen, okay? I think I believe everyone on this call is a coach, so you can all kind of think back to like staring at a blank screen and just thinking what should go on this screen. It's a great tool to just get something on the screen. It's a great tool to go back to the principles, because what's going to end up on that screen, it's all principle based. Or maybe for our more veteran coaches, to be reminded what those principles are and to kind of bring you back to those really simplistic principles. Also to save time and to create efficiencies in your program design, and to be able to create a nice and solid program design flow. Okay. We don't talk about program design efficiency as much as we used to. We used to really talk about like time design, a training program, and all of those things. But I think in talking about that, we put the onus too much on that objective number. Like, how long does it take you to program for someone? If you're spending 20 minutes, you're wrong. If you're spending 5, you're right. We just don't believe that. We believe that we were wrong, and kind of leaning into that time being the most important objective measure, but it is still an important objective measure, right? At the end of the day, we have 24 hours within a day. Most people are working 7, 8, 9 hours of those 24 hours. If we want to coach 120 clients in individual design, we could do the math and then go back to like, well, maybe I should create some efficiencies there. But we don't think that that should be the North Star. North Star should be connection, designing principle-based program designs and all that stuff. And we believe that that coaches are going to be able to leverage this tool to be able to do that. While leveraging RxBot as that tool and assistant and creating efficiencies, we can also adjust focus. Okay, so adjusting focus to the things that really matter. Okay, so what are those things in our opinions? Checking in with your clients, consulting with your clients, assessing your clients, connecting and building really good relationships with your clients. These are all the characteristics that don't equal a good coach. This is just coaching at the end of the day, right? Doing this behind a screen and just designing training programs, although it's important because people are paying you for that, at the end of the day, that's really not coaching, right? It's what happens after that is what coaching is. The connection, the correcting, the assessing, the check-ins, all of that, that's real coaching. So we want to also use this as a tool to be able to free up that time so we can adjust our focus. Okay, so we'll talk about it in the video, but just imagine a world in which you can take, the 80% of your total coaching time and you save 60% of that and you're reallocating 60% to the other things, the things that really matter, the things that really make the things that characteristically make a really solid coach. So that's another piece in terms of our intentions with this. Okay. And then the last thing I want to hit before we jump into what the heck this thing is it can allow a coach to scale their practice. Okay, so we look at RxBot as a tool that can help a coach scale, right? Maybe that's not your intention, right? But there are a lot of coaches out there that just like, there's not enough time in the day. I'm spending too much time over here. I'd rather spend and reallocate more time over there, but they just don't know how to do that. We want RxBot to be a solution for that coach as well. Okay, so then we start to talk about utility. So the utility for the new coach will likely be more, right? This is likely, will be more leaning into getting something on the screen for inspiration or using RxBot as a tool to learn or having something on the screen and then like speaking to this chat bot asking about what are these principles? Why are these principles laid out, right? Just like using RxBot as another tool to learn and dig a little bit deeper. Okay. The utility for a veteran coach might be the same, but they might focus on, or their focus might be more so biased on creating efficiencies. So it might be the scale side for the more veteran coach, where it's just like, I know the principles, I understand all this stuff. I just need to get something on the screen. And then I can like tweak it and personalize it even further. And that's the utility for the more veteran coach. I think there's a lot in between those two ideas, but I think that's where a lot of coaches are going to see a lot of utility, getting something on the screen, creating efficiencies. But at the end of the day, we're able to help coaches cut down on that like punching keys time in program design. And if we're able to do that by 40, 60, 80%, that will allow the coach to reallocate that time to not only building great relationships and coaching, but also time, energy, and effort and resources to scale their practice in a more effective way. So we think that the possibilities are, I don't want to say endless, but they almost are, right? There's a lot of different pieces and utilities inside of something like RxBot. All right, so let's talk about what RxBot is. Okay, so before I share this video and I was gonna say I'll stop speaking to you guys, but then you guys are gonna hear me speak in a video. So I don't know which is better. You guys tell me. Before we do that, I just want to say that kind of like just how we open this up at the beginning of the call, where we're just like, hey, remember when we said AI is going to be a lot different tomorrow than it is today? I just really want to hone in on that fact with RxBot. Okay, so what we're shipping and what we're delivering, by the time it's delivered to you guys in a few weeks, it's actually going to look and feel even different than what you're seeing in this video, because innovations are coming really quickly, and there's features that the AI world is putting out that we didn't even know that could have utility with us until we actually see that feature come in front of us, and we're just thinking on the back end like, okay, how can we use this feature in RxBot to help coaches? So I just want to say that, okay, this thing will continue to get better. We're really excited about it, but I'll shut my mouth and share the video here.
Since the launch of AI in late 2022, we've been deeply connected to artificial intelligence, and we've been deeply connected intentionally. So we've been asking ourselves a bunch of questions since then. Number one, what is artificial intelligence? So what is it at a base level foundationally? Number two, how will this impact the coaching profession? So as coaches, we understand what AI is. Now we have to ask ourselves the question, will this have an impact in coaching? And, we've answered that question over the past few years. The short of it is yes. Any new technology and advancements should actually impact all professions. So it's up to us to identify, does it impact us in a positive or a negative way? And then the third question that we asked ourselves back in 2022 is, how can we leverage this new technology to move the profession forward, to be better coaches. So since then, we've done a lot, right? We've launched various courses in artificial intelligence and how it relates to the coaching profession. We've held a few webinars, kind of challenging coaches' ideas, giving them tips and leading them over to our courses. And we've also developed a pretty robust prompt database where we kind of laid out, hey, coach, this is this thing called ChatGPT, and here's how you can leverage it. There's some things you can ask it. Here's some context that you can give it to kind of nudge you in the right direction and just be your coaching assistant. And it all brings us to this point. So back in 2022, we started working on something internally in our platform, CoachRx. We knew from then that we needed to create something natively in CoachRx, but something better than just like a chat bot that you can talk back and forth with and ask questions to, because ChatGPT did that just fine. So brings us to today. So now we're launching and we're discussing this new thing called RxBot. So we're really excited about this. We've been working on this in the background for about a year and a half now. And we're excited to actually show you what this thing is. All right, let's talk about why we even created RxBot. So there's a lot of reasons. I could say like to improve coaching efficiency, to give a coach a nudge, maybe do this in program design versus that, to more automate program design. All that stuff is true. But the foundational reason as to why we created RxBot is to free up time so that coaches can do what we believe is most valuable, and that's to build the coach-client relationship. So we're not saying, hey, use AI and automate the entire process so you can then, go on the beach and just hang out and let AI coach your clients. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're saying, hey, let's let AI be our assistant in some of the more administrative things, the program design things, stuff like that, so that we can reallocate that time to discussing why the whys behind that program design with our clients, understanding what our clients' deepest values and goals and beliefs are, and all of those things. Foundationally, it's just we want coaches to reallocate that time to better connect their clients to what they're doing, not only their program design, but what they're doing in their lifestyle, what they're doing in terms of my goals and my relationships from here to here to here. So that's why we created RxBot, is to allow the coaches more time to actually connect with their clients at a deeper level. All right, now let's talk about how RxBot works. And I want to talk about this first from a foundational level. So the interesting thing, and the thing that we're really excited about, is that foundationally, RxBot is built on the OPEX fitness knowledge base. So what does that mean? There's over 3 million characters that are inside of our own knowledge base that are based on the past few decades of the principles that we have taught at OPEX. So in short, all of the strength training that RxBot shoots out and all of the energy systems training, so aerobic and anaerobic work, is looking at the OPEX knowledge base first. But it's also looking at the broader range of knowledge that let's just call AI has across the entirety of the internet. So rest assured that the programs that RxBot is shooting out are tried and true, and they're based on principles. RxBot also incentivizes you to use CoachRx to its fullest capabilities. So what do I mean by that? So when you design a training program for your client using RxBot, RxBot is looking at all of the information that you put in as their coach in their client profile. So it's looking at things like, what is this client's goal? What are their priorities? What equipment do they have access to? It's looking at very specific assessment results. If you're doing movement screening and you're putting notes on the movement screen and prioritize this versus that, it's looking at all of that. If you're testing 1RMs or if you're testing energy systems assessments, it's looking at all that as well. Also, if you're building planning and periodization inside of CoachRx, RxBot is also going to consider that in terms of, I'm going to give client A this on Monday because the coach said that the client should be getting this on Monday. So there is a huge incentive to use CoachRx and to coach your clients better and to feed CoachRx more information on that client so RxBot can better personalize that training program. So the user flow on your side in your client's calendar to generate a program is absolutely seamless. So all you have to do is open up that RxBot button on your client's calendar. You determine what days of the week your client is going to train. You determine the number of weeks you want RxBot to design that training program for. And then you define what your client's focuses are in strength training and in energy systems training. And then you can also add specific context to resistance training, like, hey, I want to focus on my upper body specifically or lower body specifically. And then energy systems training, if you're doing aerobic base work, hey, make sure you focus on cyclical modalities only for this program. And then you can give overarching context at the bottom as well. And we love this because you can even personalize the program even more, and you can kind of refine that program and that output even more through this user flow. Once you're good to go there, you're just going to go ahead and click generate workout. Once the workout is generated, you'll always receive a summary from RxBot. And RxBot is just telling you why it designed the program the way that it did, what inputs did it use, how it used this goal versus that goal, or that priority versus that priority. So you'll always get that really succinct summary at the top. And then the workouts will begin to appear day by day. So go ahead, take your time, review the workouts, kind of start thinking in your head, what would I change? Is this a good session for this client? Is this something that I'm going to assign? Do I need to make any edits, so on and so forth? Once the entire program is generated, you can then go ask RxBot more specific questions. So you can ask it questions like, what principles did you use to land on using Romanian deadlifts as A on Wednesday? Or what principles did you use in this aerobic session on Friday? You could also ask RxBot other questions like, hey, RxBot, this is my client Jane, and I want you to give me a really succinct explanation in layman's terms, explaining this program to Jane so I can then send it over. Possibilities are endless, but you can kind of ask additional questions there. Once you're ready to go, just go ahead and click that button, assign program, and all of those workouts will appear right there on the calendar. So if you did need to make any adjustments, superset, unsuperset, change an exercise, whatever the case is, you can go and make those smaller refinements right there on your client calendar. And it is as easy as that. And that is RxBot. So we can promise you one thing: what you are delivered today in RxBot is going to be the worst that it will ever be, because we will continue to iterate on this thing. We will continue to take it from program design. We're going to implement this thing all over the platform, but we really want to refine and make sure it works really well for program design first. Okay, so we hope that you enjoy the technology. Give us any feedback. Our goal with this technology is to help you, the coach. So if I can offer any advice personally, it would be to just use this thing as your coaching assistant. Use this thing not to just save time in your coaching practice, but use this thing so you can reallocate that time to building really strong relationships, increase your retention, and actually get better results with your clients, as well as use CoachRx to its fullest capabilities. So again, we've said this since day one with AI across all tools. The better the input, the better the output. So behind the scenes, that's why we focus so much on what is happening, behind the scenes and in the back end with the input that we're giving RxBot based on the client. So dig into CoachRx. Fill out assessment data, have consults with your clients, determine goals, determine priorities, put all that stuff in. It'll make you a better coach, of course, but it'll also help RxBot. So we appreciate it, guys, and thank you for taking the time to watch this. And we hope that RxBot increases your value as a fitness coach.
All right, let's bring it back to reality. Appreciate you guys' patience. I know that was kind of a long video, but we wanted to get a lot of points out in that thing. I see we have a bunch of questions in the chat, but let me hit one more slide and then we'll kick it over to Candace for next steps, and then we'll have a good amount of time. I think we'll have about 30 minutes left on the cal here to answer any questions. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat. Well, I said that at the beginning, but obviously I repeated a lot of things in the intro and in the video, but I will repeat some specific things, some things that I think are really important to consider as we get ready to use this thing. Number one, yeah, just use CoachRx fully, right? So it was so important to us to make sure that this was a true integration, right? Like what we didn't want to do is like add like a clunky chat bot at the bottom that was just like a GPT API that coaches could like do things but not truly connect to the platform. That's why we took a little bit longer than we wanted to get to where we are, because we just thought it was so important for this thing to integrate. So it's integrated with CoachRx. It's integrated per your client's calendar, per all of their assessment data, their short-term plan, long-term plan, priorities, all that stuff. So get in CoachRx now and start using that stuff, right? Like I'm a true believer that will only make you a better coach. The more context that you have, the more questions you ask, the more that you challenge and support your clients. Just start doing all that stuff in CoachRx, because you're just going to get better outputs the more precise and the more specific you are there. Next is just be discerning. Okay, so You know better than any piece of software or AI what can connect to your clients. Okay. We're excited about this, guys. We've known for a while that we're going to integrate AI, but let's all agree that we're not going to put AI on this like weird pedestal. Okay. You're still the coach. You're the one that's going to have that impact in your clients' lives. Okay. So be discerning on what AI kicks out to you. We'll continue to iterate this thing and make it better and more precise, but we're never going to get it perfect. Okay. So don't blindly trust anything that RxBot kicks out. Okay. Don't blindly trust it. So just be discerning, make sure that it is exactly what you want it to be and that it connects to your client. And then finally, just iterate. So to that point on not blindly trusting, feel free to improve, iterate, put your own personal touch on these program designs and all that stuff. So we're excited about this, but we don't want to, this isn't like a savior, right? Like we think that this is an awesome tool / assistant that's going to help coaches. At the end of the day, we want to help coaches help their clients. Okay. We don't want to help coaches put wool over their clients' eyes and give them garbage program designs and all that. We want to help coaches help clients. So at the end of the day, just be discerning and iterate on this thing. Okay. So I will end it there. I will kick it over to Candace for next steps.
Awesome. I'll share this link in the chat so that you can all be distracted, but hopefully you're still listening to us. Feel free to jump on that link. It'll give you more information about RxBot. You'll have a recorded demo that we watched today. And then you can join the waitlist. And that's the most important thing. We'll have some discussion today about what's going on while you're on that waitlist. But just make sure that you're also an active CoachRx subscriber to secure your spot on the waitlist. That will, you being on the waitlist and you being an active subscriber will determine, the ordering in which you're rolled out into RxBot as it's ready. And then again, as Carl mentioned, make sure that you're getting into CoachRx and you're fully utilizing the platform and all of its capabilities in terms of client assessment data, complete client profiles, building out long and short-term plans. Carl, I know you were passing it to me, but I'm going to throw it back to you with some of these questions. And I also just wanted to maybe spend a little bit of time reiterating. There's some things, obviously, we couldn't highlight everything in that video, but even mentioning things like past programming or past splits that are in someone's calendar that you can reference, things like that. Do you want to just highlight a little bit more about the client data that's being leveraged and that RxBot is considering, especially when it comes to if clients have multiple equipment lists and things like that? Oh, and you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was muted. So yeah, we're taking in a lot of client data, and to be just like upfront, we're testing this thing right now with a good amount of coaches. So there are coaches that are inside of this thing and testing it, and our CTO Casey is having like one-to-one interviews with all these coaches, and we're just really trying to figure out what are coaches that are in the trenches with 20, 50, 100 clients using this thing. What are they saying? What are they saying they need? What is the information that they want to scrape? So I just want to be like very upfront that what it is right now might be different in a week or two, but by different, I just mean better, right? It's not going to get any worse than what you guys saw. So when you guys get in, screens might look a little bit different. You might have the ability to choose what days specifically you want to do aerobics versus resistance. So we're just getting some really good feedback right now, but on the client data side, we're pulling in a good amount of stuff. So short-term planning, daily planning, we're pulling in. Of course, we're looking at OPEX body and move and work. We're looking at the structural balance table so that RxBot can create priorities just based on that data. We're looking at resistance assessment data, energy systems assessment data. All of your custom assessment data is also pushed into RxBot and taking all of that into consideration. We're going back and forth with the idea on how we want to leverage previous workouts. Right now, we're looking back a few weeks. So I don't want to say anything that sounds final on that. We're still deciding when we push this thing to production what we want to do there, because speed is important to us as well. What we don't want this thing to do is we don't want it to take 5 minutes to design a training program. So there's a balance in the amount of data that we're taking in and the speed in which it's outputting. So I hope that answered the question, Candace, but those are the client data pieces that we're looking at, and we're going to expand on that.
Absolutely. And then connected to that, just because it did go very quick in the video demo, but there is also an open text box field for the coach to add further context, mention specifics that it wants to be considered in the design. Can you just speak to that open text field and how to properly use it to maximize that feature?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys were looking, you would have noticed like under resistance training intentions and under energy system training intentions, there was that open text field that Candace was talking about. Inside of those sections, that's an opportunity to iterate, right? I want to create a giant set program. I want to focus on this type of resistance training split. I want to focus on compounds specifically. I want 4 exercises on I can go all day, but it's just an opportunity to give additional context on what's going to be what RxBot is going to create, right? So it's essentially you prompting RxBot further than it's already prompted to better personalize that program. And then at the bottom, there's just there's another text box for like general prompting, where it's like maybe you had a client that had an ACL injury 3 months ago, and you're focusing on unilateral lower body work only for the next 3 weeks or whatever the case is. That would be an opportunity to give RxBot more context that might not be anywhere else in the platform. So we just wanted to give coaches the ability to like really refine and personalize this thing as much as possible.
Yeah, and we do have multiple questions coming in, so I'll start to filter those to you as well, Carl. But Matt in the chat did just ask something very related to that open text field. He's kind of prefacing his question of not knowing the right technical term to set it up properly. But if he wanted to have RxBot, learn from some of the programming considerations that he has in mind, for instance, an upper and a lower mobility day, maybe a full body one day and a cyclical map the other day. Again, those are things that you could specifically put into that open text field, or if those are things you had previously programmed for that particular client in whatever time frame we determine moving forward, it would consider. But is there anything you want to touch on to elaborate on that point?
Yeah, so at this moment, we don't have the ability for coaches to upload custom knowledge bases, which is on our radar. We're thinking about that. We just don't, that's just not available right now with APIs out there from using OpenAI. We're using OpenAI as our API. They're just the most innovative and give us the largest amount of ability to learn against our knowledge bases. But Matt, our knowledge base is very large, right? So like all those terms that you just talked about inside of our knowledge base, there are programs that are like, this is what a cyclical map 9 day looks like. This is what full body looks like. This is what that looks like. So essentially anything that you've ever heard us talk about is inside of that knowledge base. So it's in there, but it's also living, right? So that knowledge base is alive. So we are absolutely going to go in, update, refine, and iterate the knowledge base that we're going against. But on the back end, we're still keeping in mind, how can we allow coaches to update their own knowledge bases out of this thing? That won't be live when we ship, but we're definitely thinking about coaches being able to update their own knowledge bases.
Thank you. A couple of variations of this question coming in, and I'll summarize because I've seen a few, but the concern about coaches over time sort of losing their refined skill set to be able to program on their own or becoming too dependent on the tool. Obviously we have a lot of thoughts about how RxBot can actually contribute to education, and maybe could you also speak specifically to the responsibility of having an assistant and thinking with more of your strategic hat on versus your pushing pixels kind of hat, and the responsibility that comes with using the tool as an assistant so that you actually refine your knowledge versus lose your knowledge?
Yeah, gosh, that's such a good question. And I don't have an answer that's going to be like absolute. I have thoughts on it. So let's just take this as my opinion more than an absolute answer. I think that that's a risk, right? I think that that's a risk, but I think that that is a risk in anytime we innovate on anything, there's always a risk of like losing the ability to do something as well as we used to. But then we have to make the decision as a coach, do we care, right? And that's not me saying that you shouldn't care that you lose your ability to design training programs, because I don't actually think that what we're shipping is going to do that or even allow for that. But like I said, in 6 months, this thing might be completely autonomous. We have no idea what this thing is going to look like, what capabilities are going to be 6 months from now. And then we have to make the decision, do we want to lean into those capabilities, or do we want to just kind of leave it as it is, right? All I would say on that is, if your value as a coach sits in your program design, from a market standpoint, you have very little value. And that's coming from someone that absolutely loves program design, and I still coach people. And the best time of my top 3 best time of my week is sitting down and designing training programs. I just enjoy it. But I've had access to this thing, and I've been using this thing for quite some time. I've found myself using it more so like that, as that assistant, as like, oh, like, let me play around with, putting as much data into this as possible. And let's see, based on, with no bias of my own, what this thing would design based off of that. And it's actually given me like some light bulb moments where, like, oh, that's actually interesting, right? That's interesting. So at the end of the day, I think that we're always at risk of losing the ability to do something when we use technology to do that thing for us. That's just reality. But then we just have to ask ourselves on an individual basis, do we care?
Perfect. There are some questions coming in about RxBot beyond program design in the future. Do you want to hit on that? Specifically in reference to lifestyle first, but I know we have plans for it to scale beyond.
Yeah, let me hit pricing first, and how we're gonna roll this thing out initially. Do you mind if I hit that first, Candace?
Oh, not at all. I was kind of teeing that up for the next one.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'll hit that just because I've seen it like 4 times.
Yeah.
So the way that we're gonna launch this thing initially, guys, it's gonna be like a pay for what you use. So what we don't want to do is, we don't want to say, well, everyone's paying $50 a month additionally to have access to this RxBot thing. So what we're going to do is, we're just going to go a token system. So essentially, every prompt will cost you X amount of tokens, or a quarter of a token, whatever it is, once we launch. And essentially, organizations will just be able to re-up and purchase tokens. So if you use it a little bit, you're paying a little bit. If you use it a lot, you're going to pay more than a little bit. So it's all based on how much you actually leverage and use this thing. And that was important to us, because we're just like, we just want to pay, we want to charge people based on the amount of value that this thing is actually giving them. So we went back and forth on a bunch of different thoughts on the fairest way to price, and the tokening system is how we're going to launch this thing. We're not sure. Yeah, we're not sure if that's always going to be the way that we roll this out. One thing that we're confident from a pricing standpoint, one thing that we're pretty confident on, is that it's kind of like I said, when this thing is delivered, it's going to be at its worst and only going to get better. Um, don't like don't hold me to this, because there's things that I can't control. But I think that the way that we roll out cost and pricing is only going to go down as this thing scales, right? As AI scales. And we've actually noticed that over the last 6 months, like, what it costs for a token on the back end for us to even implement this thing has gotten substantially cheaper over the past 6 months. So we expect this thing to continue to get cheaper over time. And then, sorry, and then now I'll answer your question that you did ask me, Candace. And that question was on going to different places in the platform. So when we made this decision of like, okay, where do we start? Program design was like the obvious answer, not only because, a lot of coaches wanted it for program design, but because it was the toughest thing to tackle, right? There's so many considerations with program design, and just getting not even a good program design, but getting a program design that is usable. So we worked through some issues and got through that. But so we're starting with program design, and then we're going to expand this thing all over the place. So the idea is that this coaching assistant isn't only your program design assistant. It's also in the business suite, understanding your numbers, understanding trends and retention, looking at MRR going up and down. It's also in lifestyle, understanding how you're assessing your clients and lifestyle and all of that, and giving you lifestyle designs. So we're this quarter, we're digging into a complete revamp of how we deliver lifestyle, which we'll get to work on next quarter. So likely as we relaunch what lifestyle looks and feels like and integrations that we're bringing into the platform, outside integrations, will likely come off the back end of that and go to lifestyle next.
Perfect. Ashley and I have just been tackling, there's questions coming in on the Q&A and in the chat. So we've been tackling all of those. I think the big question that's coming up over and over again is just a hard release date. And unfortunately, we do not have that at this point. If you're on the wait list, you will be the first to know the plan for rolling out in terms of volume of coaches getting access over time and how quickly that will happen. So the best thing to do is to make sure you're an active subscriber and then to fill out that form to secure your spot on the wait list. I did see a comment in the chat that it was asking you to sign up again. So if you follow the link that I dropped here, and I'll drop it again, you will complete that form. That will just add you to the wait list officially, and we'll check on the back end to make sure that you're an active subscriber to secure your spot. Once you hit that thank you page, there'll be some more information. Obviously, the recording of the demo will be on there. There'll be some more information about how you can go ahead and get started. And if you are not an active subscriber, it will encourage you to start trial. So that page is on our marketing site, not inside the platform. So it doesn't know that you're an active member, but we'll be able to check that on the back end. So I can just clarify that for everyone. But no hard release date yet. We are working aggressively on the back end to make sure that we can have it in a place where we feel very confident about having a good volume of coaches in there. Carl, is there anything that you want to share about the feedback that we're having right now on the private beta? Or you want to not mention?
I won't. No, I won't go too deep into that because I think I already hit kind of hit that over the iterations that they'll see by the time they get in it. But on the release date, let's just say in a few weeks, we're gonna release it to the top X amount of people on the wait list. And then we're gonna chunk it out. So we can't be married to numbers, but our goal is to get this thing to absolutely everyone across the board as soon as we possibly can. And then just because we're all honest with each other, the reason why we're chunking it out over time is because there's actually limitations with like API usage with AI. So it's like server size and blah, blah, blah. So it's almost like we can't just drop thousands of people right into this thing. We have to chunk this thing out incrementally. So that was a huge consideration that we had to keep in mind when thinking like, okay, what is the release schedule? But what we didn't want to do is just sit on it and wait until we can just put thousands of people in. We're just like, let's start a wait list and let's just get people in this thing. As long as they're signed up for CoachRx and they're on the wait list, let's just drop this thing right over. So sorry if I went a little bit too deep on that, Candace, but let's just.
No, it's helpful for sure. Obviously we discussed kind of the concerns around the risk of losing the knowledge base or skill set that a coach may have while using tools like RxBot to be an assistant. Of course, there is the opportunity to learn from it. But also this presents a very new skill set that coaches are going to have to acquire, right? Like we mentioned, having that more strategic hat on, thinking about the inputs that are given to RxBot, quality control over the data that it's considering. But there are a number of factors that we need to think differently about. And so I did want to share that Carl specifically is at work on a second follow-up course to our original AI course that's inside LearnerX. That will be highlighting a lot of these newer skill sets and newer ways of thinking. It won't be specific to RxBot because we want to make sure that coaches who are using other AI tools can benefit from the course as well. But that we plan to have out in a few weeks as well to continue helping frame a new way of thinking when we are using AI tools for program design specifically. Anything you want to share on that, Carl? Because I know you just recently filmed some of that.
No, yeah, we're just gonna it was all theoretical before, right? Like our past few classes that we've done were all theoretical and how we think coaches should use it. Now we're just going to talk about what we have and how coaches should use it. And we know when we do that, like it's going to be outdated in a few weeks in terms of like the actual punching of the keys. But we'll make that really clear in the course, and we'll talk about it generally again, and how to use this natively in the platform.
Yeah, there's a couple of follow-up questions on the knowledge base, Carl, how often our knowledge base is being updated, and then the factors or the access that RxBot has to other data outside, maybe new research studies and things like that that are coming into market next month. Like how will RxBot consume those things?
Yeah, so we pointed at, obviously we have our own internal knowledge base. And then on top of that, we're just pointing it to very specific resources that are trusted on the internet. So as those resources are updated, that it's looking at and being pointed at, so will RxBot's knowledge. And then as our knowledge base is updated, so is RxBot's knowledge. And then, from like a more general standpoint, I don't know, the thing that I thought about when we're kind of building the knowledge base was like, well, how can it answer something as simple as like damper setting on a C2 row erg, right? Because it's like, do we have that robustly built out in our education and knowledge base? We have it built out in some aspects, but not robustly. So it's like, how do we ensure that it's pointed to that? And so all of that is taken care of. But anytime you open the door a little bit to like, okay, now look at the internet, that's when you just have to be discerning as a coach and just understand like, okay, what's good and what like, what are you going to keep and what are you going to throw away? So there's no, I don't see a world where the information that any AI tool spits out is absolutely perfect and precise. So I just think it's always important, especially for a coach. It's like, you guys know how to coach people, you know what you're doing. If you're using this as an assistant to get something on the screen, just look at it and just don't take it and just like prescribe and walk away from your computer.
Yeah, there are a lot of follow-up questions, Carl, just about the pricing of tokens, how tokens will work. Just know, team, that we are working through a lot of those details now, and they will be communicated when you get access to RxBot very simply in the platform. This is not something that we are trying to like mark up by any means. We will make it as affordable as possible. I don't know, Carl, if you want to share any thoughts on like token pricing and all of that, but just know that this is not something that we are trying to make inaccessible. We want many coaches using this on the regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when we launch this thing and we actually show like this is what token prices are, keep this in mind. Well, or maybe not. I don't know if you guys even care. We're actually pricing wherever we land at is going to be priced a little bit lower than what we're charged. So, it was just important to us where it's just like, obviously there's a cost to everything. And that's where I go back to like, this stuff is expensive, from like an OpenAI, Gemini standpoint, all of that. But it's just getting cheaper, right? So our pricing, and we're not going to update our pricing every week, of course, but our pricing will continue to move with the updates in the industry. If we were having this conversation 6 or 8 months ago, it would be a tough conversation because it was quite expensive 6 or 8 months ago, but it's only gotten cheaper. So not going to say a price on today's call. When we launch publicly in a few weeks, we'll have pricing and a help center article, and that will be extremely clear on what it is. And when you're using this thing, you'll understand how many tokens you have. It'll be a different token cost to generate a program versus to have a conversation with the platform. But I don't want to get too deep into that because something might change by the time we launch. No additional subscription cost. I think that was the question that I saw a few times. So your monthly subscription cost will not be affected by RxBot. The only thing that will be affected is if you use RxBot to purchase tokens. Hope that made sense, guys.
Amazing. Awesome. I think we, for the most part, have gotten through all of the questions. So I guess in closing, I dropped the waitlist link there again for you guys. Just make sure you fill out that form so that you're on the waitlist. To secure your spot on the waitlist, make sure you're an active CoachRx subscriber. If you have any questions, you'll be getting emails with the recording of this webinar and a link to the demo video. Obviously, when you complete the waitlist form, you'll get communications around what's happening as you're on the waitlist. Feel free to respond to any of those emails if you have additional questions. The team will be very happy to answer those and to provide more information as we have it. We're super excited for this to roll out. It's been a long time coming. We hope you guys are just as excited as we are. And yeah, more information coming soon. We thank you guys so much for joining us. And Carl, I'll hand it to you in case you have any closing remarks.
Nope, that's it. Just again, thanks a lot to everyone that joined today. We really do appreciate it, and we just hope that what we're doing here impacts you guys in a positive way. At the end of the day, that's the goal, right? It's like we're here to improve your value. So we're excited about innovations and stuff like that, but continue to keep us honest. Is this actually helping you guys or not? So as we continue to innovate and put in new features and make this thing better, just keep that in mind, right? It's like our goal is to help you guys and what you guys are doing. So again, appreciate everything that you guys do. Appreciate you guys being in the platform and supporting us. I know you hear this a lot, but we actually couldn't do this without subscribers in the platform. So gosh, we just really appreciate that. So yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Have a great day, everyone.
Yep.